If you've ever been sitting at home and wished you had somebody to ask questions to, you actually do in your Husqvarna Viking Designer Epic 3. We're going to explore the sewing advisor of this beautiful machine, and it will help you move from different types of fabrics and different techniques, and it will help you pick the right stitch and be set up with the correct settings. Hi, I'm Sarah from sewingmastery.com, and we've been doing free video tutorials on many different Husqvarna Viking machines over the years, and the sewing advisor is something that I feel has been on almost every machine I've ever filmed. We're talking about the ability to select your fabric, and it will then set up stitches and settings that will help you do the best work on these different fabrics. So this is one way to go in. Right here where all your stitches are is to touch the fabric selection box. And let's just kind of talk about, we have options for woven fabric in light, medium, and heavy. So we all know that when we work on a heavier fabric, usually you need like a longer stitch length or a beefier stitch. If you're working on stretch fabric, well, now we're looking for a stretch stitch that would be more appropriate. Maybe adjusting the pressure of the foot, not to sit so firmly on the fabric that it comes out wavy. And what about some of those specialty fabrics like leather or vinyl, where your foot kind of sticks or doesn't do its best job if you're just using the basic settings? So at any given time, you can always go through and change what fabric you're working on. It even gives you a definition what woven fabrics are, what stretch fabrics are, for example, sweater knits, double knit, velour, swimwear, etc. Vinyl, we have the option for faux leather and suede, and in the leather category, suede and actual leather. So let's leave it on woven, and I'm going to clarify that too. If you're unsure of the fabric you're using, make sure that your machine is set at woven medium, and that's kind of that happy middle along all the things that you're going to start with. Okay, let's go ahead and close that down. When you really want to tell the machine what technique you're going to, start at the home button, or when you turn the machine on, go directly to the Joy OS Advisor. This is where we're going to pick out different things based on your sewing project. So if we just start in the sewing area, here again, we're going to see the ability to select the fabrics we just talked about in their light, medium, or heavy choices. But here is what comes up next. So by going into the advisor, you not only get fabric choices, but also techniques. So I'm going to be picking a couple different techniques because as I pick different fabrics and a technique, it will take me to different stitches, setting them up maybe a little wider or a little smaller based on what my fabric is. And this is also a quick way to kind of jump over to, say, a straight stitch or a buttonhole or sewing on buttons. All these different techniques are right at your fingertips. Do explore that you have other things like how to do a collar or a neckline, how to sew pockets in different styles, how to do tucks and pleats, and even zippers. So those will be great tutorials for you to explore. But for today, we're just working with the basic sewing techniques. So if I'm going to go woven, medium, and touch a seam, it's going to take me to a quick little tutorial, which, by the way, you can read, you can look at the stitches it recommends, or for today, we're just going to X out of this little information. But I am going to open up the stitch edit area where we can see that during woven fabric, we need a 2.5 stitch length. So that has already been selected for us. But if we were to select a different fabric, like a heavier fabric, watch what changes. We get to a longer stitch length automatically. And that's the reason why I did kind of want to highlight, if you're unsure what you're sewing on, or if it really doesn't matter that you're picking a fabric, to be on medium, because then the stitch length isn't left at like super long and maybe a little too long for your project. But look, if I touch lightweight fabric, it drops it down to 2. So again, having that little sewing helper sitting right next to you is ideal when we don't know what we're doing. Now let's pick something a little bit more exotic. Let's say, oh yes, I did notice that it added this little message, do you want to clear your ongoing work? Yes. So we had picked a project, we had picked some fabric, and it wanted to make sure we didn't want to still be in that area. So what about some seaming and overcast? Maybe you have a serger, but that is not set up for today's project. You just need to sew something quick. And we are working on a woven fabric. It will automatically go and pick the right stitch for us. But as we can see, if we were going to do this stitch on something stretchy, it's going to change to a different stitch, and it actually spread it out a little bit wider. We can also touch the little toggle switch next to thread portioning and look at the pressure. Now, I didn't show you this before, but on woven fabric, I believe it's on 6, and for pressure for a stretchy fabric, it has reduced it in half to 3. These are the things that most people don't realize that they actually also need to adjust, and they just pick like a normal zigzag and then start to stitch and wonder why their fabric's coming out wavy. Well, pressure is something that is key for getting a good looking stitch. So again, if we kind of go back up to the home area here, go into Joy OS Advisor, go to sewing. Let's pick something else. Let's do buttonholes. So for kind of fun, we are on a stretch fabric medium. I see that in the background before we go on. So it's actually going to pick the buttonhole that is right for us. So again, we can kind of see through like how to set up for a button, how to measure a button, stitches that it's recommending. And here what we get is actually a buttonhole that's recommended to be corded. So a corded buttonhole is something very specific, and again, it helps make sure that the fabric doesn't get stretched out as we go to shove a button through an opening that we've cut apart. So that's really good. Look, pressure, same thing, still at 3, and everything else is looking about the same. But if we go to a different type of fabric, we will find that it will also pick other types of buttonholes. So again, you see a different foot selection, and the corded feature is no longer there. Look, the pressure is already back at 6. So I want you to spend some time exploring the Sewing Advisor area of the machine. And next time that you sit down to something that's not just a basic piece of cotton fabric, is to utilize the Sewing Advisor and see if you get a better stitch by going through the recommended settings and stitches for that particular fabric. Now, I see I'm back on woven medium. I'm going to pick seam, and I will be ready to start sewing just my basic sewing stitch. It kind of clears everything out after going through all those different settings. And I'm back to where I started. You'll find a link to all the videos that we are doing on the Husqvarna Viking Epic 3 in the description below, or click on this link right here at the end of this YouTube video, and you can start watching them from the beginning.